What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick. I'm the host, Devin. Sherdog.com is the website. Somewhere back there's a sign. Pretty interesting week of fights. Week off of the UFC. Well, one interesting fight on the weekend, not in MMA, in the world of boxing. Pretty huge upset in dominant fashion. And we have an okay, pretty bad card coming up this week. Some announcements from that UFC 300 weekend that I haven't really talked about yet, so we're going to talk about that. And we're going to go ahead and kick off the show with the first segment, Out with the Old. We are going to talk about Ryan Garcia kind of embarrassing Devin Haney in a pretty one-sided decision win, where still in typical boxing fashion, somehow, some way, one of the judges scored that fight a draw, 112-112. I mean, just the boxing is is a crooked fucking sport. Sometimes when you're watching boxing, you just, if it goes to the scorecards, if you are not finishing your opponent in boxing and it goes to the scorecards, it's a crapshoot, man. I mean, you look at the Francis Ngannou Tyson Fury fight, where a lot of people score that for Francis, and Tyson climbed himself up off the ground, and here we go. But back to this past weekend, Ryan Garcia, a lot of antics going into this fight. A lot of people thought he lost his mind, myself included. Earlier this week, I put into the Sherdog Slack, I don't know if Ryan is crazy or if he's brilliant, and I'm still trying to figure that out. And yeah, anybody that is willing to punch someone in the face for a living in front of hundreds and thousands and millions of people might be a little bit crazy. But yeah, I think Ryan Garcia fooled a lot of people, man. He came in 3 pounds overweight. Supposedly, Devin Haney said that he did receive that $1.5 million. He paid him $500,000 per pound. You look, we're not even talking about the fight yet, but if you look at the picture of Ryan Garcia when he fought Tank with their rehydration clause versus the way he looked against Devin Haney, he looks like a completely different dude. He looks like 30 pounds lighter when he fought Tank. And Ryan Garcia fought really smart and really well this past Saturday. It honestly, it impressed the shit out of me. And sometimes people lose fights where, we're going to go back to UFC 300. We're going to talk about Max Holloway. Max Holloway didn't really expose Justin Gaethje. He just showed he's better. But this weekend, Ryan Garcia exposed Devin Haney, in my opinion, where Devin Haney got countered off his jab a lot, doesn't really have any power to earn his opponent's respect. And if you land clean on this guy with pretty big power, you could hurt him. Right away in the first round, Ryan Garcia staggered him with the big left hook right away, like in their very first exchange, staggered him after the second round. Haney 1, 2, 3, and 4, kind of just point fighting Garcia. But then the back half of the fight, I mean, that referee was, I believe it was a 7th round where Garcia dropped Devin Haney like 4 times in that round, had Devin Haney literally shooting double leg takedowns and clinching, no point taken. But then Ryan Garcia, hits him on the break, takes a point right there. It just seemed like the book was cooked for Haney in this fight, where they really looked like they wanted him to win this. But man, and as much as we shit on MMA scoring and how we don't agree with it, like, if this was an MMA fight or you had the MMA scoring criteria involved with this, like, there's no fucking way that Haney could have won this fight, and it would have been a blowout if this was, scored based off impact, because Ryan Garcia hurt Devin Haney. I mean, I'm surprised. I guess I'll get into this right now. I don't like when people's spouses or parents are their trainers and they're the ones that are, you know, in a way vicariously living through their children, like what seems to be the Devin Haney and his father's relationship, because there was no title on the line here. Ryan Garcia seemed to purposely miss weight by 3 pounds. So there's no way that Haney could have lost the title here. And I would not have, they probably should have thrown in the towel to just save this kid from getting, you know, embarrassed and the continuous brain damage. Ryan's hand speed and power is a problem for dudes. His ability to time Devin Haney's jab and just fire that left hook off any clinch breaks. His wrestling, and I mean, it's not standard wrestling, but it's boxing wrestling where Ryan Garcia seemed to be the stronger guy. And there was a point where Ryan Garcia just was like, I'm just going to bully this guy, where he just walked down. There was one moment where he dropped him. I believe it was maybe in the 7th or 8th round, where Devin Haney is just reeling backward. No back foot counterpunching skills from Devin Haney too, which is something that's going to be something that needs to be taken notice of, where if you can buzz him and shake him up and force him on the back foot, all he does is backpedal and cover up and head towards the ropes to, you know, try to shell up and counter off of that. But he doesn't really have like a pivoting back foot counter game when he's buzzed or you know, kind of getting overwhelmed by a bigger puncher. But Garcia just kind of, you know, chased him down with this like 7 steps forward throwing combinations, and then just buzzed him up and dropped them in the corner, in one of the corners. I believe it was one of the neutral corners, just dropped him, boom. And he had Devin Haney just hurt so many times in this fight. It was kind of incredible. 12th round, he kind of almost, some people score the 12th round for Haney, some people score the 12th round for Garcia, but Ryan Garcia he got hit with one clean left hook of his own. And what he did was he just bit down and went, let's freaking go. And Ryan Garcia, his reactions to getting hit with power punches from Haney was very different than Haney's reactions to getting hit with power punches from Ryan Garcia. It was stark, to say the least, extremely different when they would both land on each other. And this was just a very exposing fight, in my opinion, again, for Devin Haney. He's not the smallest guy at 140 pounds, but there are plenty of big punchers in this division and around this division. You know, guys like Teofimo Lopez, and I mean, God, imagine what Tank Davis would do to this dude. Tank Davis would probably make him sign 3,000 different rehydration clauses and whatnot, and probably make him try to go to 136. But yeah, I mean, if Ryan Garcia is having this success with power punching, Tank is extremely durable and hits probably harder than Ryan Garcia. He's not as fast-handed, but I mean, when Tank's ability to line up shots and time shots and then dead people is bar none. He's very good at that. Yeah, I just see a lot more people taking a bullying approach to Devin Haney in the future, where, like, you know, land your shots, clinch, make him tired, land your shots, clinch, make him tired, hit him with big power, cause him to get on the back foot. And you can hurt this guy. Even at 140, you can clearly hurt this guy. Devin Haney says he wants a rematch. I don't know if it's even warranted. Ryan Garcia even came out after he said, I don't want to make 140 anymore. I want to go to 147. I can't make 140. Cool. Let him go to 147. But I think this is his first loss in his career. And I mean, it was an embarrassing loss. Like, he kind of got shit kicked by Ryan Garcia, and Ryan Garcia made a fool of himself, drank a beer at the weigh-ins, his, pre-fight antics. People, I mean, the athletic commission sent him literally to, I hate to use the term psych ward, but they sent him to doctors and specialists to get a analysis on his current mental state to see if he was okay to fight even. And yeah, they deem nothing wrong with him. And at the end of the day, I think it's Ryan Garcia is a young man. He's 25, learning about who he is. And you can't really be mad at someone that's having fun and winning at life and enjoying themselves if he's not hurting people. He's tweeting crazy shit about me versus John Jones on coke, who would win. But like, that's just a tweet having fun. If he's not out there hitting pregnant ladies and stuff like John Jones, I've got no problem with it. Let him say whatever the hell he wants to say. He's selling fights. He sold the fight better than Devin Haney. Yeah, he missed the only slight against Ryan Garcia I have is the blatant weight miss. But if you paid $1.5 million to miss that weight, whatever. He sold the shit out of this fight, won this fight in dominant fashion, and he's probably going to move up to another weight class and, get himself bigger fights with other names up there. I would love to see Ryan Garcia fight someone like Teofimo Lopez or like a Lomachenko, but I don't think this, or even like a Shakur Stevenson, but I don't think he wants to make this weight anymore. I'd love to see him rematch Tank. Maybe they can do it at a catch weight, like at 143 or 144. I know that's a big jump for Tank, but off a win like this, I think Tank would take a fight like that. Just all around great stuff from Ryan Garcia, including the fight, including the selling of the fight. I actually personally didn't mind it at all. As for Devin Haney, he needs some time off, but again, I think stylistically the book could be written on him, and maybe he can win fights against guys like Shakur Stevenson. Shakur had a recent fight where he had low volume and kind of looked pretty terrible, even though he won. But there are big punchers around this weight class, and there are guys that will walk him down and throw hammers at him and not respect him. And I think now that Ryan has set the blueprint out there on what to do against someone like a Devin Haney. Yeah, Lomachenko had a very close fight with him and buzzed him up. But I think just the, forward pressure, willing to exchange with him and throw big power and land clean on him. A lot of guys that can do that in this division. Great win by Ryan Garcia. He lit the world on fire this past weekend. It was 420, and he smoked his ass 420 style. Moving on to the middle segment of the show, What's Hot? We are going to talk about two things, and we will do it pretty quickly since it's something that you guys probably already know about. But we're going to talk about UFC 302 headlined by Dustin Poirier and Islam Makhachev. And I should say that reversed, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier, because Islam is the champ. Don't know the odds on this. They are probably already out there, seeing as this fight, it will be very soon, June 1st, I believe. And this whole fight transpired on Saturday evening or in the early hours of Sunday morning of UFC 300 in the press conference, where Dana White was seemingly handed a handwritten note at the post-fight press conference. I guess Arman Tsarukyan was offered the fight, but after his win against Charles Oliveira, and he declined. He said that he doesn't want to fight Islam again on short notice, and he doesn't want to fight for the title on short notice. I respect and understand that completely. So they called Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier had been hinting this, and I'm sure it's something that was out there. What goes on behind the scenes with the UFC. I think sometimes the UFC is a lot more transparent with their fighters than we even realize. Guys like Dustin Poirier, where Dustin Poirier had been hinting at this for about a week or so now, maybe 2 weeks, where he said, hey, something's coming in the future. So I think maybe the UFC told Dustin, hey, man, if Arman Tsarukyan wins this fight, we're going to offer it to him. If he declines, we're offering it to you. Just start getting your shit ready, basically. So Arman Tsarukyan declined, and Dustin had his hand up, and they picked him. And do I think he's the most deserving fighter in this division? for a title fight right now? No, I think that's probably Arman Tsarukyan. However, if Arman Tsarukyan doesn't want it, Justin Gaethje just got flatlined. Charles Oliveira just got pretty cleanly beaten by the number one contender in Arman Tsarukyan. Dustin Poirier is coming off of a pretty violent knockout win against an undefeated Benoit Saint Denis. And Max is pretty beat up, and Max seems to be campaigning for a fight at 145. So fuck it, whatever. I'm here for it. It's Dustin Poirier. He's one of the biggest stars in the UFC. One of the best fighters to have ever fought in the UFC and MMA point blank period. He's probably top 15 MMA fighters ever. And Dustin Poirier is just a legend. He's an OG. He's got 2 dubs over Conor. He's he's finished Gaethje, finished Chandler, recently fought for the BMF belt, even though he got knocked out and lost. 2 wins over Max Holloway. I'm not going to sit here and spew Dustin Poirier's record to you guys, because if you're listening to the show, you know who the hell Dustin Poirier is. But hey, I get it. Look, will Islam be like probably a minus 450 favorite? Yeah. And should he be? Yeah. But you never want to count the diamond out of a fist fight, period. I mean, Dustin Poirier could beat anyone in the world at a fist fight. He's Dustin Poirier. What's going to be cool is they'll be fighting with the new gloves. So those new golden gloves that are supposedly have been redeveloped and redesigned. I know that Trevor Whitman had been lobbying with the UFC to get them to change their design. He owns Onyx, and he has his own glove design. And maybe there's some sort of incorporation with Trevor Whitman, or maybe they just paid someone else. Who the hell knows? A lot of media people on UFC 300 got to try the gloves on. I was not there, and nor have I tried the glove on. But it looks almost, I don't want to say it looks like a Pride design, but the Pride design glove was something that I got that right 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, with the, it kind of forces you to close your fist. And yeah, it may be harder to clamp down on things or, get that gable grip, but still, I think the UFC changing their glove is the right thing to do. There's just too many penalties and too many, weird things that happen with those gloves there. So I'm interested to see how that is going to impact Islam Makhachev in his wrestling and what he likes to do. And I'm curious to see how this is going to impact wrestlers and grapplers. We've already seen the MMA scoring criteria kind of shift in a way that favors strikers. And we see, strikers, you look through all the divisions and you see a lot of strikers, their first art is striking that are champions right now. Look at heavyweight. Heavyweight is kind of in a weird space. I'm not calling John Jones a heavyweight champion. Yeah, John Jones a champion. We're going to say it's Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall can do both. He's a striker and a BJJ guy. Light heavyweight, Alex Pereira, striker. 185, Dricus du Plessis. He can do both. Welterweight, Leon Edwards, striker first. Islam Makhachev, wrestler first. And he's, Ilia Topuria, striker, wrestler. But, there's a lot more guys that want to favor their that want to strike more than wrestle these days. So I wondered how these new gloves design will impact the wrestlers, whether it be beneficially or negatively. For Dustin Poirier, he's gonna walk into UFC 302 and he knows this is his last shot. Dustin Poirier is a guy that's an extremely, he's a cerebral guy. He's the back half of his career, he's made kind of almost all the right decisions inside and outside of the octagon, minus him continuously jumping guillotines on people. That will be his demise if he decides to do that against someone like Islam Makhachev. I think that if he jumps guillotine on Islam, the fight's over. It's going to end in one sequence on the ground because Islam is that good there. When it comes to the striking, Dustin Poirier can strike with any human that can make 155 pounds, and probably most of them that can make 170. Dustin Poirier is a mother effer when it comes to, getting down with these right here. He can throw them hands. He's got probably the best check right hook in the game. Curious because Dustin Poirier is not a very good fighter when forced to bring the action. He's a much better back foot counterpuncher. He is much better reacting in exchanges than initiating exchanges. He is much better letting you walk onto shots. He's got good timing. He's really good, and Dustin Poirier thrives in chaos. But Islam Makhachev, when fights with Islam really happened under his terms, the only fight that I can even recall that has not happened on his terms was the first Alexander Volkanovski fight. But in those prolonged exchanges in the pocket, he buzzed Volk a lot of times in their first fight, caused him to drop to one knee, things like that. Curious to see how this fight plays out if we do enter rounds 4 and 5 and he has not, dominated Dustin on the ground. Islam Makhachev is so tactful and so talented and so smart. It should be, a pretty easy sweep for him, but you never want to count out the diamond. I'm a Dustin Poirier guy, and this year has already been, pretty incredible with him getting that knockout win over BSD and then the Max Holloway win against Justin Gaethje. My guys are winning fights right now, in fights that they were underdogs for, and I'd be, if he wins this fight against Islam Makhachev, he's probably going to be the fighter of the year in 2024 just because the odds will be so stacked against him. A good fight. I'm here for it, and Islam wants it. So when the champ wants it and you're someone like Islam, you get what you want. Moving on to the final segment of the show, and with we have a UFC card coming up this weekend. We're going to talk about 2 fights. Just because there's not a lot going on with this that I'm super excited about. 2 fights, though. Co-main and main event this weekend is headlined by Matheus Nicolau versus Alex Perez. But first, we are going to talk about Ryan Spann versus Bogdan Guskov. Odds on this fight are... Bogdan Guskov is a plus 170 dog. Ryan Spann is coming in at minus 205. Pretty decent favorite odds for Ryan Spann there. And I could say I kind of agree with them. Ryan Spann is coming off of 2 losses in a row where he was triangled by Nikita Krylov, and then his most recent loss was a split decision versus Anthony Smith in a pretty close back and forth fight. Prior to that, he has 2 wins. He was on a 2-fight win streak where he subbed out Ian Cutelaba in 2022, and then later on in 2022, he knocked out Dominic Reyes. But prior to that, he did lose against Anthony Smith in 2021, and that was probably the last time Anthony Smith looked good, where he kind of club and sub and kicked the shit out of Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann is a guy that he was on a hell of a run. In 2017, he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Between 20, in 3 years, he won an 8-fight win streak. Who are those wins against, though? Probably he knocked out Antonio Nogueira in 2019. He submitted Devin Clark, but in 2020, prior to his loss against Johnny Walker, he had a split decision win over against Sam Alvey. I mean, it's light heavyweight, and that's just the most light heavyweight record there is. Bogdan Guskov lost via rear naked choke to Volkan Oezdemir. Prior to that, he was on a 1, 2, 3, 4-fight win streak, all knockouts. All of his wins come by finish. And he's just that guy. His last time out, he knocked out Zach Pauga, looked really good doing so. He's got 2 fights in the UFC. And in this fight, it's funny because Ryan Spann is now fighting Anthony Smith for a 3rd time, because Bogdan looks very similar to Anthony Smith. In a fight like this, Ryan Spann he definitely has the technical side in the submission game. He's definitely a lot more technically sound when it comes to submissions. He's definitely the bigger guy. He's the longer guy. I don't know who has more power. I'm going to say they just both have equal power. But I'd say Ryan Spann is also the dude that can get a little more shook up and make more mistakes in fights. Bogdan Guskov is raw, but he also has that raw, like, don't give a F type style of fighting, especially at light heavyweight, where he's like, I'm just going to throw hammers and chuck these fists at you and see how the dominoes fall, see how the cards fall. And he's been successful in doing so, especially when you have all your wins via knockout or finish, TKO, or knockout. That gives you a lot of confidence. Yeah, he lost to Volkan Oezdemir in his UFC debut, and that's a pretty big step up to not fight anybody, then to step into the UFC and fight Volkan Oezdemir. I believe that fight was on short notice as well. Ryan Spann is a guy that I've personally never believed in. Do I think he's a good fighter? Yeah, anyone in the UFC that stays in the UFC for as long as he has is a good fighter. He's not bad, but he's just unreliable. He gets shook up from shots. He's one of those guys that when he gets hit, he seems to just get hit hard. He's got like that amount of hibosh in him where like they just get, bonked by shit and just seems to like buzz them or hurt them, or like whenever you hit Ryan Spann with a hard shot, he makes bad decisions. But another thing Ryan Spann is really, really good at is hurting people, having them shoot for the legs and then snatching up that guillotine. He's got a hell of a fucking guillotine. If you like to throw hammers and then shoot when you get hurt, and you do that to someone like Ryan Spann, and he hurts you, and you start shooting for the legs, like he may just slap that guillotine on you, that high elbow guillotine. He's so tall and long. He's one of the biggest light heavyweights on the roster. He's going to squeeze your freaking head off. As for Guskov, he is just a front foot, big, powerful striker. He has decent tact when he wants to set up his strikes, but he's a marauder. Like, that's his thing. Walk forward, sling heavy leather and try to hurt people and get him out of there, like he did to Zach Ponga. He's got deadly power. He hits very, very hard. It is almost going to be Ryan Spann's. I mean, the smartest way for him to win this fight is to try to maybe wrestle and mix in some wrestling, or, maybe shoot a single leg and just go for it, even if you don't get it, just to, throw that other aspect of the game out there. But Ryan Spann is a dude that just, even against Anthony Smith his last time out, like he hurt Anthony Smith several times and just like couldn't get it done. And Anthony Smith's a freaking dog, and we know that about him. He, mentally, his mental fortitude is something else. His body's falling apart, but his mind is just so damn tough. It's probably a bad pick, but I'm going to go with Bogdan Guskov to just hurt Ryan Spann, fall him to the ground, and finish him with ground and pound. Give me a round 1 TKO, hurts him on the feet, follows him to the ground, and finishes him with strikes. And it's probably gonna be the exact opposite. I'm gonna be dead wrong here. I just don't believe in Ryan Spann, and I believe in Bogdan Guskov's willingness to get on the front foot and just make it a brawl. And I think he can, have a 50-50 shot there. All right, guys. Final fight we're going to discuss this week. We have Matheus Nicolau taking on Alex Perez. Odds on this fight are Alex Perez, a slight dog here, plus 145, plus 150. You can get him. Nicolau looks to be basically minus 185 everywhere you can, anywhere and everywhere. This is a pretty interesting fight, and it was kind of put together on short notice, unfortunately. Alex Perez is a guy that I definitely believe he's better than his record shows. He's lost 3 fights in a row. However, he lost to Davison Figueiredo in 2022. Then he lost to Pantoja lost to Davison Figueiredo in 2020. He lost to Pantoja in 2022. And then his most recent time out, he lost to Muhammad Mokaev via decision in a pretty close fight. He's only got 3 fights in a 4-year span. However, the dude has had, I think he's had like 8 different fight bookings. and he always has some sort of issue coming out. His last professional MMA win was 4 years ago. And he looked absolutely great against Jussier Formiga, and Formiga was a good fighter at the time. Leg kicked him to bits. And prior to that, the Jordan Espinoza win via arm triangle choke was pretty good. He did lose to Joe B back in 2018 via TKO. But again, that's 6 years ago. Alex Perez is a guy that likes to wrestle. That's his bread and butter. Loves to wrestle. Good submission game, even though he can shoot head inside takedowns and leave his neck available for guillotines. But pretty good power with his striking, pretty good volume. He mixes things up well. He will obviously, good leg kicks, ask Jussier Formiga. He's got decent range, but he likes to close the pocket and really get his wrestling going. He's a good chain wrestler, got singles, doubles, you can take the back, trip takedowns, all those things, collegiate American style wrestling. Matheus Nicolau, on the other hand, is a very different fighter. Much more of a slow paced, methodical range striker, who's very tactful. He's a very intelligent fighter. He does not make a lot of mistakes. Even though he did get his head kneed off by Brandon Royval his last time out. But it's been a whole year. His last loss was in April of 2023, and that's when he did step inside and got hit with the knee. But even if they replay that fight, I don't know if Brandon Royval can replicate that. It's not lucky by any means, but yeah, perfectly timed. I'll just say that. Prior to that, he knocked out Matt Schnell. A lot of people do that. And before that, he beat David Dvorak, beat Tim Elliott. He has a splitty over Manal Kopp, which is a very good win. It's funny that he left the UFC and was cut and came back, but he got knocked out by Dustin Ortiz, but I still don't think he should have been. I don't think the UFC should have ever got rid of flyweight, but that's neither here nor there. What worries me about someone like Nicolau is he's got a lot of wins. His record is 19-3. However, all 3 of his losses come by knockout, and they're all pretty violent, especially the Dustin Ortiz and the Brandon Royval. Dudes that catch him slipping, and he does seem to get hurt pretty badly. And maybe that's why he has that certain style, of fight. I think Alex Perez, even though he's on a 3-fight lose streak, he did take this fight on short notice. If he comes leaping into the pocket, Nicolau is a really crafty back foot counterpuncher. And he can fight a similar fight like he did to Manal Kopp. I think he can try to time Alex Perez with, straights down the pike or uppercuts when he comes entering in. If he tries to just leap into the pocket with him, Matheus Nicolau is going to be skirting outside the octagon. This isn't the Apex, so this will benefit Alex Perez being in the smaller cage 100%. It's a tough fight to call, honestly, because I do see Alex Perez being able to get wrestling going. But over 5 rounds on short notice, he may get tired. And Nicolau does have good cardio. I think Nicolau can, take the first 2. I don't want to say take the first 2 rounds off, but really ramp it up through 3, 4, and 5 and make things difficult for Alex Perez. But Alex Perez is a good wrestler. And I think Alex Perez, just his name and him in total he's been kind of tainted by these 3 losses in a row, 2 of them against champs and former champs, and then one of them against a young prodigy. But it's really just all the pullouts and the illnesses and the injuries. And, if he didn't have all that other shit going on and he just was a guy that didn't fight too often, I'd feel a lot better about him. But I'm going to go with Matheus Nicolau. I think Nicolau, he's got a full camp. He's replaced. This was supposed to be a Manal Kopp rematch. Nicolau can take the same approach that he took with Manal Kopp and probably a similar approach to what he's been training for, where, be risk averse, pick your shots, land your stuff. If he explodes into the pocket, land your shots, use your footwork, stay on the outside, pot shot here, pot shot there. Don't have prolonged exchanges in the pocket where you're going to give Alex Perez opportunities to wrestle. Yeah, give me a Nicolau by decision. I don't think he's finished as Alex Perez, but if he does, maybe he does, due to attritive damage later on in the later rounds, maybe 4 or 5. But I'm going to go with Nicolau by decision here. That's the show, guys. Shorter show this week because we did not have a ton to recap and not a lot of really good fights. But next week, we got some more fights coming up. And then the week after that, actually, no, next week is UFC 301 in Brazil. Not the best pay-per-view, but that's what you get after UFC 300. But there is still some little pieces of gold that I'm going to be here talking about. And then we're going to recap this card next week as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Sherdog.com is a website. That's my handle. That's the sign. I almost got it right this time. That's the sign there. Check the kick. Enjoy the fights.